Welcome. You have arrived at Ancient Mother Church. The experience is split into two parts. The first is dedicated to the historical information, the second to the tactile exploration. Let's start. On 26th of December 1959, the Lecce surveyor, Antonio Del Rose, arrived in Carmiano to carry out a survey on the little church dedicated to Our Lady of the Assumption. As the technical records kept in the Lecce Curia witness files that, alongside the planimetry of the building and the holy furnishings, are one of many documented sources. The holy building, built in the 15th century and transformed over the centuries, displays a modest architecture, with few decorative details, while the transept facade has the mix of curved and straight lines typical of Baroque. The mother church was erected on a small plateau near a primitive urban conglomeration called Pozzo del Casale, opposite the gate giving access to the medieval district, which sprang up on the ridge of the Serra di Carmiano. The church was built according to the ancient Roman messapic tradition that dictated burial along the peripheral roads to keep the memory of ancestors alive, and to respect the Christian medieval culture, which required the building of a church and a neighboring burial ground on a raised plateau to prevent flooding. In the last centuries of the late Middle Ages, the ancient town chapel, dedicated to St. John the Baptist, became a parish with full administrative autonomy, governed by the local clergy, while respecting the canonical directives of the papacy. In the last decades of the 15th century, demographic growth showed up the insufficient capacity and obliged the community to plan for a new mother church. It was built near the old one so as to take advantage of the contributions offered by Countess Mary of Enghien, with the aim of eliminating the lingering heritage of the Byzantine culture and the Orthodox faith. It was erected on the same plateau and dedicated to Saint Mary, and in the 16th century it was enlarged and the transept was built around the ancient construction. The Bishop of the Diocese of Lecce, Luigi Popacoda, changed the ancient name of the Mother Church of Byzantine heritage into Our Lady of the Assumption. The prelate definitively eliminated the canonical law of the Byzantine Empire and introduced Roman Catholic law. Changed the ancient patron saints of St. John the Baptist and St. Mary into the Immaculate Virgin in 1708. And in the first years of the 19th century, St. Vitus was added to the patronage. The ancient Mother Church was named after Our Lady of the Assumption in 1640 when it boasted 3 naves, a transept and the apse, and chapels along the perimetry walls furnished with 11 altars and 11 consecrated frescoes. In the chapels in the side naves, the confraternities of the sacrament, the rosary and blessed death were established. In the underground burial ground, which was divided into 30 areas, defunct clergy members, benefactors, infants and the poor were buried, along the perimetry walls of the catacombs until the first half of the 19th century, when the Napoleonic Code demanded the construction of a single cemetery at a distance from the town, for both communities. The presbytery was accessed by a step, separated from the transept by a metal balustrade, while the great stone altar covered in marble stood in the center surrounded by the wooden chancel. The back wall, embellished by 2 decorated pilasters, displayed the large bas-relief of Our Lady of the Assumption in a niche, and by 3 pointed lunette arches bordered by 2 corner pilasters. And in the center the porthole for daytime illumination. The vaulted ceiling of the apse boasted a fresco of Christ the Redeemer seated on clouds, surrounded by paradise on the right and by a blazing hell on the left, under the banner of a Latin epigraph, Tu Rex Gloriae Christi, You Christ the King of Glory. From the surveyor's technical report we can see that the ceiling was vaulted. The naves supported by pillars, 2 semi-pillars in correspondence with the entrance door and the presbytery. In the side naves, 4 stone altars clad in marble, 2 to each side. In the transept opposite the door there was the altar consecrated to the souls in purgatory, and all the altars were embellished with simulacra in papier-mâché. Eucharistic and liturgical functions were celebrated in the naves. Processions were prepared there, nativity creches set up. Christenings were carried out at the baptismal font, and weddings and confirmations in the apse. Patron saints' feasts were organized in the parish archive office, and the priests taught parishioners to read and write in the sacristy. The 2 separate entrance doors served to distance the 2 sexes and prevent any dialogue or communication. In the 1890s 2 fires destroyed the holy furnishings, and a consistent part of the paper documentation in the parish archive was burnt. The lecce stone of the altars was blackened, and the clergy and the faithful had to collect sufficient funds to start the reconstruction work. All the altars were reclad in marble. New paving was laid in the naves and new benches were installed. The facade of the transept was rebuilt, and the clock tower erected. When a block of tufa was dislodged and fell from the bell tower and small lesions in the perimetry wall grew, the local council, the clergy and the bishop decided to request the intervention of the civil engineer and also asked for a renovation of the clock tower. In a technical report of the 22nd of November 1960, we see that the civil engineers insisted on the fencing off of the bell tower in Via Immacolata, and forbade access from the transept door. Government bodies agreed to buy the church for 7.5 million lira to complete the 20th century building begun in 1913. Civil and religious bodies decided to demolish the ancient Mother Church, to the dismay of the faithful. The bishop demanded the rapid completion of the new church so as to guarantee continuity, and the carrying out of all the ecclesiastical functions needed in the community. In the summer of 1962, the ancient Mother Church was demolished, cancelling 6 centuries of the town's history, and altering the appearance of the town centre. The lost its distinguishing feature, a precious treasure chest of memory. As a partial recompense, the town council, in its deliberations of the 27th of February 1964, unanimously voted to change the name of the area from Largo Piazza to Piazza della Santa, so as to, according to the minutes, hand down to posterity a record of the former holy building that for centuries was the place where so many generations received the sacraments of the Christian religion. Here follows the audio guide. Mother Church. Reproduction in lecce stone. Height 70 centimeters. Very pale yellow color. The reproduction of the side facade of the church, that represents a portion of its side prospect, is in a vertical position, inserted into a metallic structure, of a dark gray color, of a height of 160 centimeters and a width of 120. It is flanked by 2 molded aluminium panels. The reproduction, which is perfectly symmetrical, stands on its base at the center of the structure. Now let's discover its features. Briefly explore the whole of the facade from the gentle, rounded shapes that can be subdivided into 3 explorative sections. The lower one, whose main element is the door, the middle one, embellished with decorative elements, and lastly, the upper one, with the bells and the cross. Now, bring your hands down to reach the stone base of the facade, identifiable by a broad horizontal strip in relief. In the middle there is a flat surface, or rather, the entrance door, characterized on the inside by 8 ashlars, small, rectangular, carved elements, 5 on the right and 3 on the left. Below the 3 ashlars on the left we find the entrance door, identifiable by a vertical carved rectangle. The door is framed by a smooth cornice of about 1 centimeter down the sides, while at the top it is finely decorated with circular elements at the corners and in the center with a bas-relief which takes the shape of a moustache. Now, move your hands from the door cornice towards the outside until you come across a concave area which develops vertically. Go beyond it to reach 2 tall, smooth, squared-off columns or buttresses of about 2 centimeters in thickness. And straight after that, the facade sinuously makes its way back in to fit in with the walls of the building. Following the descent, after a small vertical step, you will find 2 large rectangular carved cornices, with blunted corners towards the inside that stop shortly before the side perimeter of the facade. Bring your hands back to the door and move them upwards. Just after the central moustache-like bas-relief you will find a small rectangle in relief which encloses a carved decoration, while, above that, there is a minute decorative bas-relief. Immediately after that, you will find, along all the breadth, a thick, protruding cornice, or rather, the string course. The portion above the door is in the shape of an arch. Directly above this is a thick decorative element, the cartouche, curvy and in relief, with 2 small pointed pieces protruding at the top. If we continue upwards, we find ourselves inside a large rectangular cornice which encloses the cartouche and, just a little higher, a round clock face surmounted by a second string course similar to the previous one, characterized by 4 small steps, at the center of which there is an arch with a double decoration. Now, bring your hands between the cartouche and the clock face and move them towards the outside. Straight after the cornice we find the buttresses that were present on the lower part of the facade. Continuing after a small vertical step, on both sides there is a large decoration which develops vertically, with a consistent concentric element at the foot and a smaller one towards the top, features that make us think of curls. Starting from the 2 decorations, continue on up until you get to the roof of the church, smooth and D. In the center there is a curved cap, above which you will find a large rectangular platform, 7 centimeters in height, decorated in the center with protruding cornices, and, in the upper area, with 2 little archways embellished at the extremities by a pair of small spirals. A vertical structure stands on the upper base and supports 2 bells, 1 large and 1 small, and at the summit, a large cross. Audio description text, Professor Macchia. Audio guide text, Studio 0. Validated by, Italian Union of the Blind and Partially Sighted, Lecce Branch. Original music, Lara Ingrosso.